Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to tell you the story of the time when I got to be on the other side of the trench driving a 10-ton 360 JCB excavator. This was a very unique, kind of like once in a lifetime or career, I guess, an exciting opportunity for me to have, and I'm really excited to share it with you today. I really treasure the memories and also the fact that I can say that I have driven one of these machines as a part of my job as an archaeologist. Before we begin, make sure to support my channel by subscribing and also go over onto Instagram and follow me at rachellawman.digs, where I have lots of exclusive content that I've been posting that you guys have never seen before on this channel. Okay, let's dig in. In case you didn't know, as a part of archaeology in the UK, we use digger excavators to remove a lot of the topsoil on sites, to kind of strip away the stuff that we're not interested in, to get down to the layers that have a lot more going on archaeologically. Having these machines on site is quite common for us, and a lot of our jobs can sometimes involve watching these machines dig trenches or stripping topsoil off and then directing them depending on what we can see coming up. For our story today, we are going to rewind back to September 2016. I had just moved down to Lincoln as I was offered a pretty lucrative contract there working for Network Archaeology on the Lincoln Eastern Bypass. This is part of a ring road scheme to go around Lincoln, which is a very beautiful little town to visit in the Midlands of England. It's got a really beautiful kind of medieval old city, some very famous walls, and also a copy of the Magna Carta in residence at its castle that also used to be a prison. It's got a very famous cathedral, so lots of cool, fun things to see there if you're ever thinking of visiting. I essentially moved, but not moved down there for the project because as a part of the contract, they were offering 24/7 accommodation for people coming to work there, provided by the company, because there simply weren't enough local archaeologists in the area to supply the amount of people they needed for this project. They provided us with somewhere to cook, sleep, and live. They gave us subsistence pay for every day that we worked, and they were also offering us a lot of overtime and overtime pay, so pay at time and a half as opposed to just your regular wage. So I decided to take that job because it seemed like I was going to make a pretty decent chunk of money on it, and I wasn't wrong. A lot of people ended up working on this project throughout its lifetime. I think it's actually finished now. It's in the post-ex phase where they're starting to process and publish everything, but I was lucky enough that I was able to be a part of the very first patch of people starting on that site in September 2016. I think there were about 20 to 25 of us to start out. This project overall comprised a lot of different sites along the planned pathway of this road, but to start off, they were kind of tackling one of the biggest sites first, which was a farmer's field that was essentially divided into two by a railway. There was so much archaeological activity going on this particular site. It was really kind of like nuts to comprehend how much it was just like encompassed within this space. Pretty much almost every single period of human occupation within Britain was represented within this site in some way. Now, they went into this project knowing that there was a lot of potential to find some really exciting things on this site, and obviously this is also a really massive scheme. So it's kind of it's something that you really have to plan what you're going to do and how you're going to tackle the site properly. And also it's something that you have to plan in conjunction with what the council's requiring to you, what the planning's permission requires you to do, what the developer wants done. So it's a pretty complex project. They decided to start things off by basically digging a bunch of evaluation test trenches across the entirety of the site to try and pinpoint hot spots of archaeological activity going on. So like there's a lot of stuff going on over here, but not really a lot over here, etc. They did this in kind of two phases. So as I said, the site is divided in two. So we had like a northern half which bordered the River Witham, which runs through the city of Lincoln. And then you had kind of the south half of the site, which was bordered by the road that we drove in to site on every day. The southern end of the site, it was decided to do the test trenches with machines, to dig them with machines. So you just take basically a chunk of earth about 1 meter long and the width of the bucket out, and then you look at what's in it. On the northern part of the site, they were doing most of the test pits, as far as I can remember, by hand, and we had to be really careful on that bit of site because there was a lot more evidence of prehistoric stuff going on. So not the kind of things that are very easy to see in the soil, so you can't just like machine through it, if that makes sense. So you have to do it instead by hand. So we arrived on site and we were starting to do a lot of these test pits on the northern bit of the site by hand and kind of planning out the rest of what we were going to be doing. And on one morning of, I am fairly confident is the first week of us being there, we were having our morning briefing or meeting where we kind of go over safety, what's happening on site today, etc. The project officer who was leading the site said, "Does anybody here have any experience driving machines?" And crickets. There was nobody said anything. Me being the person that I am, I kind of stepped out and I put my hand up and I said, I mean, I don't, but if you're offering, I would love to try. And he said, "Oh, okay, great. We have one volunteer then." And everyone was kind of like, "Oh, what? And he said he asked for another volunteer. One of the other women put her hand up as well. And that's how 2 out of about 5 women on this like 25-person team at the time were the 2 who got picked to learn to drive the machines. Nobody else volunteered. Just goes to show that it never hurts to put yourself out there. So they took us aside and they told my colleague and I basically that we were going to receive a crash course that afternoon on how to drive these 10-ton 360-degree JCB excavators. When I say 360, that means that they can spin around all the way instead of not being able to turn around completely in a complete circle. I never got told officially, but I heard like through the grapevine that the reason they decided to do this is because it would be cheaper to train us to drive the small dinky machines that were doing the bits that didn't really need a lot of expertise. You know, you just dig a hole and it doesn't even have to go that deep. It doesn't have to look that nice. It would be cheaper to train us to do it than to hire out the actual machine drivers to do those bits of work. And we had 2 machine drivers on site already, and so it freed them up to go and do kind of more important, more difficult work. We went about our morning, and then in the afternoon the instructor arrived. Him and the 2 machine drivers and myself and my colleague, we went out into a field that we were supposed to be digging into an area where we didn't think there was much going on. Like I think it had been excavated previously or something had happened, so that we didn't have much danger of destroying anything archaeological. And he put us in the machines and walked us through all the controls. You know, you control whether the machine goes forward or backward with the pedals at your feet, and then you control the actual arm with 2 joysticks that you have in the cab. So at some point you could be using both your legs and arms at the same time, which is kind of crazy. He also took us through all of the safety precautions, you know, talking about the fact that you have a big blind spot on one side and you have to make sure that you're always looking for this and you never do this, etc. Meanwhile, at the same time, the rest of our team were getting what's known as Bagsman training. So Bagsmen are people that use hand signals to help direct the machine, because when you're in the cab, you're pretty isolated. You can't always hear what's going on. You can't see everything that's going on around you. So a lot of the time you need an extra person standing outside the machine telling you what to do, especially when you're doing archaeological work, because the archaeologist will be indicating you into the machine whether or not you should be going deeper, whether or not you should be picking up, have they found something. After my colleague and I kind of got the hang of the controls a little bit, we joined up with the rest of the team and we went through an exercise where each person came and individually practiced Bagsman training with us. So this was obviously to help us get familiar with the signals that people use, and then also for them to get familiar with the signals that they needed to give us. And it was really, to be honest, it was really fun. It was really cool, especially since it's something that you spend so much time as an archaeologist watching someone do. So to switch places and to be on the other side of it was really interesting. And I think a lot of archaeologists, I know myself, have sometimes suffered from the thought of like, oh, this guy's screwing this up so badly, like I could do this so much better. It gives you like a new perspective on how much more difficult it can be than what you thought it was when you're just standing on the ground watching it happen. And also, like, in terms of perspectives, it's also completely different because you're so much higher up off the ground, and I think you realize And so you feel a lot of the time like every single like little movement of the machine. You also, as I said, have a blind spot where the big arm of the digger comes out that you can't see around that. And so because of like the power of the machine and these blind spots, you have to be really hyper aware of what you're doing, because you could very easily kill, maim, or hurt somebody pretty badly and not realize it, because as I said, you're pretty isolated in that cab, so you might not realize things until it's too late. So it's really important to be safe when you're doing this. The scariest part, ironically, was taking the machines on and off site and parking them at the beginning and end of the day. Which I think a lot of people are going to be like, what? That doesn't really make any sense. This is because the site that we're going on to every day was actually downhill from where our kind of like site hut headquarters and parking lot was. So every day we had like a little road, a little paved road, and then a dirt road that went down into the field that we would have to track through to get to wherever we were going that day. When we went out to training, the two digger drivers that we had on site drove the machines out, because obviously we hadn't started driving them yet. But at the end of the day, that first day, we had to take them up and we had to park them. And you could just tell that the guys knew what was coming, because they were staying with us, they were chatting and everything. So we're going up this little dirt road. And the thing with these diggers is that they don't have two separate sets of wheels. Like when you have something like a car, you have one wheel set goes over and then the other set goes over. This is just, they're tracks, right? They're like tanks, but it's not the same as driving a car. So basically what happens is you go up and then you reach the point where the hill goes from going uphill to being flat. And what happens is you basically roll your machine up this thing, and so you're basically rolling into the air with the power of the machine, and then once it reaches over its middle point and the front becomes heavier to the back than the back, the machine then falls to being level and will inevitably rock back and forth a little bit as it settles, which, I'm not gonna lie, almost messed my pants the first time that happened, because like I said, you're high up, you feel everything a lot more in the machine. Yeah, the guys were like, don't worry, it's supposed to do that, it's not a big deal. It does feel a little bit the first time like you're about to fall over and the machine's gonna go everywhere, but it was all okay. Obviously, the opposite happens when you go onto site for the day. So you're rolling along and you're on this nice flat surface, and then you've got this downward surface, and so again you roll forward until you're overbalanced, and then the machine just goes whump, and then it just continues down. So that kind of action of this also takes some getting used to, because you essentially fall forward when it happens. It doesn't rock back and forth like it does when you come onto the level, but yeah, both of those take some getting used to. After our 4-hour kind of crash course at the afternoon of that day, we got some certificates from our trainer. It was like an official training company that did this, but there were limitations to it. It was not in any way like an officially run course with lots of other drivers. It was kind of a custom job that was being done for this. And so the certificates that we had, they basically said that we could drive only this size of machine and only on this site for this job. It's not something that I could take and go and use elsewhere. And we then went on and dug some test pits. As I mentioned, there were 2 other actual qualified digger drivers on site who were available to like help us out if we got stuck or we were nervous about doing this one thing or something was going wrong with the machine. They could help us out with it. And they were really great guys, so patient with us and so nice. Really funny, actually, the day after we got our training, we showed up on site and they had bought some of the learner permit magnet stickers that you put on cars when you're still like a new driver, and they put it on the backs of our machines, which was a great joke and prank. I thought it was hilarious. They were just so great with us, and despite, you know, we were clearly like so unexperienced, had no idea what we were doing. From that point onward, it was simply a matter of take the machine out in the morning, go to the bit that has been flagged, and start digging some holes. Like I said, it's not the most complex digger work that's ever been done, but I'm still proud to have done it. And luckily, I was actually looking through a bunch of my old photos and videos the other day, and I found a video of me driving the digger and digging some holes, which I'm going to share with you now.
You're not doing any video in them? No. Well. Didn't see him got you in shot with. Oh, right now, get him out. Nice one.
Yeah, so there's your proof that I did it. It takes a surprising amount of concentration. It really engages your brain a lot because you're having to kind of think about a lot of different things while you're working, but then also keep an eye on the person who's directing you in terms of what you're doing, because obviously you can't see beyond what's happening in the bucket. This was actually kind of nice because it made the days go really, really fast. I'd like to think that I picked it up pretty quickly because I like to play video games. I'm used to using controllers, so using the joysticks to control the bucket and the arm wasn't too much of a stretch for me to wrap my brain around. It was also really nice because when the weather was a bit crap, as it was starting to get in September, October, November, I could just sit inside my nice little cab. I could turn the heating on if I wanted to. I could listen to a little bit of music, and I would be nice and dry and sheltered from all the rain. For a moment, I did consider, oh, maybe I should just go be a digger driver, because ironically, as some of you will know, digger drivers actually tend to make more money than archaeologists once they get to a certain point, which is incredibly ironic. And to be an archaeologist and a machine driver, I thought, wow, that would be like a winning combination to get me hired just about everywhere, anywhere I wanted. But I didn't actually end up going through with it. The process of getting your ticket, as it's known, to drive one of these machines is not cheap. It does cost like more than £1,000, and you do have to go to an official training course to do it. And not only that, but you have to have a lot of experience in order to get paid really well and to be really desirable, and you only get that experience by doing it a lot. It would have involved a lot more training and a lot more time on different projects to get the experience I would have needed to be really, really good. And I also would have probably had to go work on construction projects that weren't archaeological in any way, shape, or size, and that was all that I was interested in. So yeah, so I didn't end up pursuing it. I do think that I did pretty well. They kept asking me to use the machine, so I would like to think that I did okay. It took a couple weeks for us to do all of these test pits that had been marked out with flags. Once we finished our kind of section, we then had to go back and backfill all of them because they were just basically, we pockmarked the entire field, and there were other machines that had to get across it, and they were a safety and trip hazard. So yeah, kind of ironic to dig all of these test pits and then to have to go back and fill them all in, but whatever. And after we finished all of the machine work, my colleague and I then went back to doing the rest of the digging by hand with the rest of the team. On occasion, I would be asked to take the keys and get the machine and go move spoil heaps, which probably took me, I want to say, like 10 times longer than it would have probably taken like a regular machine operator to do. But That's fine. I don't have a problem with that. I knew that I was underexperienced. Nobody laughed at me too hard, and I managed to get the job done without causing an accident, hurting anybody, or breaking the machine. So it's a win in my book. So yeah, that's the time that I learned to drive a machine. Yeah, my little 10-ton 360 excavator. I'm very proud of that. It wasn't the smallest size of machine, it was like a mid-sized machine, so that's pretty cool. My dad, who's very much like a guy who likes his like engines and machines and stuff, was like so proud that his daughter learned how to drive this machine instead of all the other boys on site. It was quite funny. And obviously I myself am quite proud of the fact that I learned how to do it, and I managed to do it well. Retrospectively speaking, maybe I should have just gone and gotten my ticket and started working as a machine driver. I probably would have made more money than I currently do, but c'est la vie, life is life. Maybe I'll just go back and get it at a later point in time. All right, that's it for today, everybody. Did you like this video? Did you find it interesting? Have you ever driven a machine? Would you like to? Let me know in the comments below. Give me a thumbs up if you liked this video. So help support the channel by subscribing, and also pop over to Instagram and give me a follow at rachelallman.digs. Thanks so much for watching, everyone. I'll see you next time. Bye!